Information that could completely upend the post-World War II financial system has started to circulate in American and European corporate circles in recent weeks. Insiders in banking institutions and stories from the Financial Times and Divet claim that a number of significant European nations have declared their plans to remove their gold stockpiles from U.S. vaults. This includes countries like France, Italy, and Germany, nations that have been believed that the American storage system was reliable and stable. However, the situation has drastically shifted in light of Donald Trump's trade policies. Washington believed that Europe would once again accept similar terms when Trump levied fresh tariffs on European commodities, including as aluminum, agricultural products, and even some industrial components. But the Europeans have their own cards to play, as Bloomberg economics experts note. A symptom that confidence in the United States as a steward of financial reserves has been eroded is the decision to contemplate the removal of gold. This is more than simply a setback to America's image. Since the existence of Allied stockpiles at Fort Knox and Federal Reserve vaults was one of the pillars of American hegemony, losing European gold would mean losing control over world financial movements. What is even more concerning is the news that Beijing confiscated a specific point in time. China has made it possible for foreign gold reserves to be stored in its own vaults, according to Reuters. Additionally, sources in diplomatic circles assert that talks are already under progress, despite the fact that no official confirmations from certain nations have surfaced as of yet. Furthermore, it has been reported that a number of states have made initial deals to provide China a portion of their reserves, specifically which, although the countries involved have not yet been revealed, experts do not rule out the possibility that Trump's policies are most negatively affecting U.S. friends. In the event that this scenario materializes, the world will experience a situation for the first time in which America's principal geopolitical adversary controls the largest European gold holdings. This would undermine Washington's ability to influence international financial markets, in addition to causing it to lose trust. According to the Wall Street Journal, an anonymous EU official was quoted as saying, "This is a blow to the very foundation of the dollar system." According to him, Europe can no longer trust a nation that exhibits an isolationist inclination and openly applies tariffs against its allies. It is important to realize that gold continues to be the cornerstone of global settlements. Gold reserves are still seen as the final resort, even in the age of virtual currencies and cryptocurrency assets. Their transfer to China will automatically boost Beijing's position in discussions with BRICS, since China will then be able to argue that it is not only the largest producer, but also the custodian of the world's gold. If Germany alone chooses to shift its share, it will symbolize the end of the time when the U.S. was considered the world's primary safe haven, according to estimates from the research tank Chatham House. This is a significant hurdle for Trump. His use of trade battles and intense pressure on allies is eliciting surprising reactions. For the first time in a long time, Europe is demonstrating that it is prepared to take independent action instead of merely adhering to U.S. policy. Furthermore, there will be a cascading impact from the transfer of gold to China. The similar action might start to be considered by other nations, particularly U.S. allies in Asia. Insiders claim that, according to Politico, this topic will be at the forefront of a conference of EU finance ministers that may be held in the upcoming weeks. Global markets will be shocked if a decision is taken, even if it is only in the shape of preliminary agreements. The risk is already taken into account by investors. While the dollar index is beginning to decline, the price of gold has been steadily rising in recent days. As a result, Washington has encountered a danger that it obviously misjudged. Initial tariffs struck trade, followed by political remarks from Europe, and now one of the most susceptible sectors, financial trust, is taking the brunt of the damage. And Trump runs the risk of becoming known not only as the president who initiated a trade war with China, but also as the leader who made America's allies take the idea that the U.S. storage system no longer ensures the security of their reserves seriously for the first time. The dispute between the United States and additionally, there is a strong historical undertone to Europe's gold dispute that specialists are actively recollecting today. Germany brought up the possibility of partially repatriating its gold reserves from Fort Knox and the Federal Reserve Bank of New York as early as 2013, according to Frankfurter Allgemeine at cited. This was stated at the time as a desire to boost domestic confidence and diversify. However, the fact that the biggest economy in Europe was the first warning sign, according to observers, was that it was already considering recovering its gold. The subject is back with a vengeance today. Now, it is particularly noteworthy that France is one of the nations thinking about relocating gold in light of Trump's trade conflicts and political pressure. According to Lemon sources, the Elysee Palace is actively debating the concept of enhancing Europe's geopolitical independence from Washington. Even Charles de Gaulle in the 1960s vehemently denounced dollar reliance and called for the conversion of dollars into gold, as French authorities remember. France was among the first nations to publicly oppose dollar hegemony at that time. History is being repeated today, but on a larger scale. Italy's gold reserves have always been viewed as the last line of defense in the country's dire economic circumstances. Rome now thinks that keeping gold abroad makes things riskier rather than safer. Rome may find itself in a position where its own reserves are curtailed or even used as leverage if ties with the U.S. worsen. Expert circles are already debating how such an action might affect the economy. A widespread departure of European gold would devalue the dollar and undermine confidence in the U.S. financial system, according to Moody's analysts. The entire system. What would stop additional neutral or even hostile nations from following their lead if friends began to have doubts? Furthermore, China is establishing a different financial center of gravity by making its vaults available. This is a political gesture as much as a logistical assistance. In essence, Beijing is saying, if America can no longer provide stability, we are prepared to turn into the world's new pillar. It's interesting to see that experts are also talking about the psychological strain this places on markets. According to a London Bullion Market Association analyst cited in the Financial Times, even speculations of gold transfers might set off a domino effect. While investors are progressively shifting away from the dollar and towards safer assets for the U.S., gold prices have already reached fresh local highs. Consequently, there is a risk that borrowing rates because confidence in U.S. debt is closely linked to confidence in the U.S. dollar and gold reserves. For now, there has been little political response in Washington. Politico claims that Trump has